Back to your seat, please. Get back to the meeting. I'll go ahead, even though we're not all here, but they'll be here in a second. Okay, I'd like to call the meeting to order for the May 8th, 2018 study session. Madam Clerk, roll call, please.
The record will reflect that all members of council are present.
All right. Are there any questions on the consent calendar from anyone up here? Seeing none, we'll move on to the next item we have is a proclamation to Public Works Department. Director Mr. Webb, would you like to please come forward, please? How should we do this? Do you want to make a comment first, or should I?
Sure, if you like. First of all, I'd like to thank you for the opportunity to come forward today and talk about Public Works a little bit. This is National Public Work Weeks, recognized by the American Society of Public Works, APWA, excuse me on that. But I think it's a great time to reflect about the importance of public works in our lives, and Mr. Tucker talked about earlier, the foundation of our society, supporting our property values and the things that go into that. It's such a fundamental part of our daily lives, our roads, our water systems, our parks, our facilities. Sometimes we take them for granted. So I'm just thankful that we can take a minute today and kind of reflect on that a little bit. Some facts just I know real off the top of my head. We have like 87 buildings in this city that we maintain, 400 miles of streets, 120 miles of alleys and 64 parks, over 30,000 trees. We have 300 miles of water lines and 200 miles of sewer lines. We have piers and wharfs and harbors. This is a unique city because we have about every type of public works. We don't quite have an airport, it's over there. And we don't have a rail system, although we had one in 1920, but the McFadden brothers sold that off. But we have a lot of infrastructure, and actually the credit of that infrastructure is which you invest in it, and also to the staff that work in day and night working on that infrastructure, keeping it running. So just thank you for the time today. I do have some managers here today, and we're hoping we can take a picture with you all today. I asked my frontline managers and our utilities folks to come. And hopefully be recognized for all the work they do behind the scenes. It's interesting, I was at the utilities yard, the municipal operations yard today, met some of our beach maintenance staff, and they had been up since 5 in the morning. They were out cleaning the beaches and getting ready for the staff and the folks to come out. The water system worked great today. They were on that, and we've got a guy in 24/7, even on the weekends, making sure that all runs for you. So just a great time to reflect on that, and thank you for that opportunity to speak a little.
Great. Well, thank you. And now I will read this proclamation. Whereas public works services provided in our community are an integral part of our residents' and visitors' everyday lives and serve as the foundation of our society, and whereas the support of an understanding and informed citizenry and elected officials is vital to the efficient operation of public works systems and programs such as streets, highways, harbors, waterways, water, sewer systems, public buildings, solid waste collection, and whereas the health, safety, and comfort of the city, state, and county depend on these critical facilities and services, and whereas the quality and effectiveness of these facilities, as well as their planning, design, construction, operation, and maintenance, are vitally dependent upon the efforts and skills of public works and utilities operation managers and staff. And whereas the efficiency of the qualified and dedicated personnel who staff the public work and utilities operations departments is materially influenced by the people's attitude and understanding of the importance of the work they perform. And whereas the American Public Works Association has celebrated National Public Works Week since 1906. Now, therefore, I, Marshall Duffy Duffield, Mayor of the City of Newport Beach, do hereby proclaim the week of May 20th through 26th, 2018, as National Public Works Week in the city of Newport Beach, and I call upon all citizens and civic organizations to acquaint themselves with the issues involved in providing and maintaining our public works system, and to recognize the contributions which public works and utilities operation officials make every day to our health, safety, comfort, and quality of life. I want to thank you. So
Thank you. If I could ask our public works managers to come down. I see Dan Sereno, Keith Hinckley, John Salazar's back there. Stefan, if you could join us too. And we got our city engineers here. Jamie Copeland. Come on down front and take a picture with us, folks.
All right, now we have a presentation from Mr. James McQueen on our Orange County Human Relations Annual Report.
Brought some reinforcements as well.
Good evening, Mayor, council members, Mr. Kiff, Chief John Lewis, and community members. My name is Minza Malik, and I'm here with Jim McQueen. We're both board members of OC Human Relations, a nonprofit organization, and we're here to present on some of the work that we have done in the city of Newport Beach over the last year, and also present you with copies of our annual report. We believe that all people have a right to live free from discrimination and violence, so we provide programs to create safe and respectful communities. This last year has not been easy for our country. We have struggled at times to remember that we are all united by our American identity. We have seen deep divisions and strife among leaders and even neighbors. OC Human Relations believes that our mission to build understanding amongst our diverse residents is more important now than ever. This relationship building can contribute to a sense of community in our cities.
OC Human Relations partners with cities to manage challenging issues such as the lack of civil discourse, encouraging meaningful participation of more residents in the decision-making process, and overcoming the mistrust that can affect police and community relations in a negative way. Many of our programs are provided countywide, such as #HateFreeOC, a public awareness and education campaign which does the following. Its goals are to do the following: create a hate-free environment in Orange County, bring diverse communities together, promote a peaceful, inclusive community where everyone can thrive. In the fall of 2017, OC Human Relations launched a youth-focused campaign to educate young people about hate crimes and incidents. This campaign, called No Hate, logged over 1 million impressions online.
We would like to share some of our programming exclusively in Newport Beach. We mediated 82 cases as well as 17 family mediations in the courts or community where one of the parties was a resident of the city of Newport Beach. In collaboration with the Newport Beach police and community groups, we documented one hate incident and conducted one police or community reconciliation case. We also had 1,087 Newport Beach youth who participated in our Bridges Violence Prevention Program, which is a school-based program that teaches students to create safe and inclusive school climates. We also had 7 Newport Beach youth participate in the year-long Human Relations Ambassador Internship Program and 1 student who attended the week-long Summer Youth Leadership Institute. We continually work to build a sense of community among Newport Beach residents and staff through our regular hate crime education, victim outreach, and support. We recently also had the opportunity to provide community building circle facilitator training to social workers at Hoag Hospital, where I do work during the day hours.
In conclusion, OC Human Relations has partnered with the City of Newport Beach for the last 25 years, and the goals have been to bring police and diverse residents together to build safe, respectful neighborhoods, to develop positive relations among the broad spectrum of Newport Beach residents, to address community conflict and strife, and to sustain a human relations infrastructure to serve cities when crisis situations occur. We are proud of the long-standing partnership we have with Newport Beach and so many other cities in Orange County. Together, we are contributing to a safe and respectful county and building important relationships that can be called upon in times of tension and turmoil, should they arise.
If the mayor would come forward, we'd like to take this opportunity to present you with a certificate. We'd like to honor the City of Newport Beach for your continued support of good human relations this past year with a certificate of recognition.
Thank you so much for that, and you guys do great work. We really, really, really appreciate it. All right, next item.
Just briefly, you probably should take public comment on that one since it's more than just kind of a proclamation. See if anybody wants to comment.
Okay. Are there any people out there who would like to comment on this item? Seeing none. The next item is our wireless telecommunications antenna on streetlight poles. So we'll have a report from staff.
Yes, and thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just briefly, I have a conflict due to my employment in wireless-related industry. I'll excuse myself.
Thank you.
Good evening, Honorable Mayor, City Council members. I'm Simone Georges. I'm your Community Development Director. This evening, we're going to talk about the wireless telecommunication antennas on our streetlights, and we're going to talk about the difference between our kind of macro cell towers versus our small cell towers. There's a lot of departments involved in any time we work with our telecommunications applicants. This evening I have with me Lauren Whitlinger. She's our real property administrator. She's been working with the carriers on the small cell applications. And in addition is David Keeley, who is going to be handling the encroachment permits. And so those two individuals will be making the presentation. For this evening, we did purposely invite the carriers to be present to listen to our presentation, and later on if they can make comments, Mr. Mayor. I will go ahead and hand it over to Lauren. Thank you.
Good evening. As Simone mentioned, we're going to talk a little bit about both macro cell and micro cell installations and the latest technology, small cell. Here are some examples of macro and micro cell installations. On the left, you have a much larger, much taller installation. These macro sites typically have many antennas. They're placed on very tall poles, and they have a large signal range. And then you have micro cells. An example of that would be on the right. Typically, those are installed on streetlight poles. There's usually a lot of equipment that is involved with these two types of installations. And the signal range for both of them is much greater than the small cell. Here are some photos of small cell installations. The signal range, as I mentioned, is much lower here. You've got about 500 to 1,500 feet. These are typically installed on streetlights, but there's much less equipment. The antennas and the radio units are encased in shrouds at the top, and there's no additional equipment needed. So the purpose of small cell is to fill in gaps in coverage. They're supportive of the micro and macro cell installations, but they increase the download speeds and the bandwidth that those other cell sites have available. The small cells help improve the performance of 3G, 4G, LTE, and Wi-Fi services. It's important to note that the small cell is not 5G. That technology is not available yet, but the installation of small cells will help roll out the 5G when it is available. So this is for illustrative purposes only. The carriers all have proprietary coverage maps. So this is representative of that. The large black circles would be your macro sites. Those have a much larger range of coverage. And then the micro sites shown in blue kind of fill in those gaps in coverage. And the small cell that the carriers are now looking to roll out are the red circles, and those further fill in the gaps in coverage. Talking a little bit about the city's infrastructure, the city owns approximately 7,000 streetlights. There are approximately 12 different style streetlight poles, and depending on where it's located in the city and the function of the specific pole, the light heads are very different also. We have some high voltage circuits that cannot be used for telecom. Those streetlights are in a few different areas of town and cannot be utilized. All of the streetlight poles are maintained by a third-party contractor, International Line Builders. Here are some photos of typical lights that you see around town, everything from lights on top of bollards to decorative street poles. Not all of these can be used for small cell installations. They typically need the height of your regular street light pole, 30 to 35 feet. And here's a map of the location of all of the city-owned streetlight poles. There are certain neighborhoods that do not have any coverage. There may be Edison poles in those areas, like in Newport Coast, or there may be HOA-owned streetlights, and then there are just some neighborhoods that do not have streetlights. The city's been working with 3 different carriers, Verizon, Mobility, who's representing Sprint, and AT&T on the rollout of their small cell program. This is representation of a typical installation from Verizon. On the left, you see the antennas are enclosed in a shroud at the top of the pole, and then the radio units are housed in a cover at the base of the pole. And then on the right-hand side, all of the equipment would be at the top there, the antennas and the radio transmitters. A typical installation for Mobility would be very similar, with the antennas at the top of the pole and the radio units housed in an enclosure at the top of the pole as well. And a typical installation for AT&T, all of the radio units and antennas would be housed in a shroud at the top of the pole. From a regulatory standpoint, the city can't consider radio frequency emissions and the environmental effects of those in our regulation of small cell or other telecommunication installations. City does have a policy regarding wireless telecom on city-owned property. The policy establishes the type of permits that are required, terms of the agreement, eligible city sites, and it also outlines the requirements for compensation terms, including the requirement to obtain fair market value return for use of city property. A current update for you, we do have a template license agreement for the macro and micro sites. We have an established fee schedule for the macro and micro sites. And then on the small cell side, we are working on a master license agreement. We're still negotiating with the carriers, and the fee schedule has been established, but the carriers have contested that the rates are too high, so we are going out to obtain an update to our appraisal. As Simone mentioned, there are a lot of different employees that review telecom proposals. There's 5 different departments that get involved in the telecom review when a project is submitted from a carrier. This is a brief overview of the city's telecom review process. The first step would be to get an agreement in place, and then the use permit entitlement is issued. Encroachment or building permits are issued, and then if the location is changed, there may be an amendment to the master license agreement for that specific pole location, and then the carrier would be installing the actual equipment. This is a brief summary of our rates. On the left-hand side, you see the micro and macro sites. A big part of that rate structure is based on the amount of equipment that is installed with the antennas themselves. And then on the right-hand side, you see the small cell sites. This is a tiered rate structure based on the number of poles the carrier is installing.
Go back. Mr. Mayor and City Council members, the rate structure there in front of you on the right-hand side is our small cell side. So that's the fee that we've come up with to charge the carriers to install on our light standards. Those light standards are city-owned property, so we charge a fee per our council policy. Those fees on the right-hand side are being contested by the carriers, and hence we are going to go back and review our fees and go back and do the reappraisal. It's a new technology. There's more product coming online, so more product means prices will come down. So last time we did this was a year ago, so now we're going back and resetting the fees.
Mr. Mayor, you mind? Thank you. So to that point, it might be worth discussing for just a moment. So you actually went out to a third party for appraisal on this to help set the fees, and you're planning on going back out to, was it going to be the same appraiser?
We were looking at the same appraiser just because there's not a lot of appraisers that have expertise in telecom.
Okay, thanks.
Next steps for the small cell program is to continue to negotiate with the carriers to finalize the master license agreement, and as Simone mentioned, conduct another fair market value study of the rates. Happy to answer any questions.
I'd like to know if this is a good time for the representatives before we go to public comment, and for any comments from the dais would like to come up and speak. Any of the representatives like to do that? See one.
With us. Good evening, Mr. Mayor, distinguished council members. My name is Judy Woolen, and I'm a representative of AT&T. And tonight we're just here to hear the presentation by city staff, and actually thanks city staff for all the work they've put into putting together a good ordinance, and we're still working with them on the master license agreement, and there is contention with the fees, so we're hopeful that the appraisal that comes in is something that we can work with as well as the city. But we wanted to show you kind of what our facilities are going to look like when they're installed. So go ahead. This is Dan with AT&T also.
Hello, I'm Dan Wazenelik with AT&T. I think earlier Lauren had provided a photo of one of our representations, and this is a 3D model that we had printed out. It's utilizing existing streetlight locations. We end up usually swapping the pole out for structural reasons. We have to place a new pole, and the antennas and our radios are all mounted up at the top, and so there's nothing located at grade as long as we can share power, city power, and pay for that, which I think is part of the current agreement. And it's a pretty slick design, and this is one of the nicest designs that we've seen so far. So I guess we're available for questions.
Well, I'm going to have the next representative come up.
Sure.
Good evening, Mayor Duffy, Mayor Pro Tem O'Neill, council members. I'm Leslie Daigle, representing Verizon, and have represented them since 1998, when it was known in this market as AirTouch Cellular. Verizon handles all of your police and your fire, your Marine Division, as well as the county. So we really appreciate, I think the message that we have for you today is that we appreciate the work of your staff to implement our project. And as you know, we're trying to cover the high capacity, high traffic, high visitor areas of the peninsula. So we do have an umbrella of macro sites in this city, and what the small cell is doing is providing additional capacity. So the small cell is an underlayerment. In addition, on Newport Coast Drive, where there are coverage gaps, the small cell is a tool to provide coverage into those nooks and crannies. So because of the terrain challenges on Newport Coast Drive, we're putting in the small cells. If you could go to Verizon's design, please, with the base enclosure. So where we think is the future of these designs is you'll see here a base enclosure. So much as you have on a boat, you'll have an engine cover where you swap your equipment in and out, or you have a battery cover. What these base enclosures do is it provides a stable form in the urban environment. So that never changes. And really now, on an annual basis, we're having to swap radios in and out. So the radios enable our phone technology, and phones continue to change. So as the phones change, the radios change. So having that stable equipment enclosure just allows us to move equipment in and out as it's innovated. So long as we have ADA clearance, that is what we're implementing. So we appreciate working with the city, and thank you, Mayor, for inviting industry to make any comments.
Thank you. Are there any? Hear from another one?
Good evening, Mayor Duffield, Mayor Pro Tem, and council members. My name is Barbara Breeden. I'm here in representation of Mobility. We do small cell installations for Sprint. If you don't mind showing the mobility design, one key distinction between our design and some others is we do have what is commonly referred to as a backpack, and that goes near the top of the pole, but below the antenna. The reason that we do the backpack is it overcomes any need to really tackle ADA issues, which we have seen are typically an issue that does arrive when you put the equipment at the base of the pole. So with the backpack near the antenna at the top, we eliminate that need for ADA concerns that arise, and some cities have found that they actually get less opposition from the public where the equipment is higher above the line of sight, and so it's really not interfering with what they're seeing at the level of where they're driving, where they're walking on the sidewalks, and almost kind of goes unnoticed. So that's a good reason that we have that equipment closer to the top of the pole. We're very much excited about the master license agreement that is coming down the pipeline here, and we appreciate all the hard work that staff has put into that. We look forward to ironing out some of those additional kinks with staff.
Great, great. Thank you for that input. All right, I'd like to bring it back to the council comments. Councilwoman Dixon.
Thank you, Mayor. Staff, thank you for bringing this forward because it's an important subject as we see these kinds of issues in our community. Most recently, last week at the Planning Commission, with I think was a master or macro poll, and what it did was elicit much response. Correct? Most of them? Except
Yes,
for the Newport
city,
Coast, I guess.
Correct. The city does own most of the streetlight poles, except in some areas like Newport Coast.
So I have two paths or tracks of interest, I'm not saying concern, but interest aesthetically. I understand, I'm talking to some colleagues in other cities, that there are design standards or aesthetic standards, so that, as we've just seen with mobility and Verizon and AT&T, each has its own different type of design equipment. Even though the same equipment manufacturer may supply them anyway, they come off differently. My question to staff is, what kind of control do we have? Or do we have standards, design standards, to ensure that it's we're making not
Like Councilman Peotter, I did not in the presentation hear how the master license agreement fit into our current zoning code and the public process involved. Unlike him, I am glad to hear that the zoning code is remaining in place and that there will be a public process for the approval of these. Unlike the councilman, I hope that that public process remains in place. I think it's very important for the public to have a chance to make their concerns known to the staff rather than have these things just quietly signed off on. And among those concerns, I hope the staff realizes there are some locations at which this would be put in front of a view window, of which we have many in Newport Beach, and those should be avoided when it can just be put on an ordinary street where people will not be perpetually looking out their windows at the new installation. And then finally, the staff mentioned that we still have in place a council policy L23, which involves the city manager actually signing the contract. If we're still using that, I would like to point out to the council that that policy is very much in need of revision because it's arguably violates the Brown Act. It's the reason I'm actually started coming to council meetings, and it allows the council to give its consent to the installation or the award of the contract by being serially polled by the city manager, and then the lack of response from them is taken as an approval, which I don't think is a good public process. The public is not even aware it's going on, and it's a serial meeting that's not supposed to be happening anyway. Thank you.
All right. Thank you. Are there any other speakers on this item? All right. Seeing none, I'll now would like to have public comments on agenda and non-agenda items. Anyone like to come forward?
Mayor Duffield, members of the council, my name is Jim Mosier. I'm back. I believe this is actually public comments on agenda, non-agenda items, and your closed session agenda. And on the closed session agenda, I would like to call your specific attention to item 4B, which we saw also on the agenda 2 weeks ago. This is noticed as a conference with the legal counsel for anticipated litigation with no explanation of what the anticipated litigation may be about. This notice, I want to point out to you, is actually not compliant with your policy A1, which requires that this actually conform to the format that is in the Brown Act. This should say it's anticipated litigation about significant exposure to litigation. In other words, a threat of somebody suing the city. As it is, the public has to hunt through the code to find out what it's about. Whether it's compliant or not, it's really questionable why the council finds itself needing to meet on a matter that is not disclosed to the public what it's meeting about. Last year, there were 10 meetings that the city council held in closed session with a notice similar to this, anticipated litigation with no explanation of what it was about. I thought we were doing better this year. In the first 4 months, there was only one case, and it was noticed as anticipated litigation that you might be initiating litigation. And apparently you actually did that. It was reported out at the end of that meeting that you had a 4-3 vote. The public still does not know what that was about. But now the last 2 meetings, we're back to like we were last year again with these notices of meeting without telling us what you're meeting about. It's presumably legal for you to be doing this, especially if the notice was correct. I don't think it's a good practice for the city council to be doing. The public deserves to know what's going on. Compliance with the Brown Act is mostly just a matter of trust. And it's hard to have trust when you allow the city attorney to be so secretive as to not even tell it. We can't even complain about what you're doing because we don't know what you're doing. Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any other speakers? Seeing none. Closed session, Mr. Harp.
Thank you, Mayor Duffield. The City Council adjourned to closed session to discuss items 4A through C, including meeting with the City Manager, Dave Kiff, Assistant City Manager, Carol Jacobs, Human Resources Director, Barbara Salvini, and Peter Brown to discuss labor negotiations with those unions listed under agenda item number 4A. Council will also meet with legal counsel to discuss one matter of anticipated litigation where the facts are unknown to the potential plaintiff. And finally, the council will meet with legal counsel to discuss two matters of existing litigation, and those are titled Orange County Catholic Worker versus Orange County, as well as Ashley Lauren Watts versus City of Newport Beach. Thank you.
Thank you. We're recessed until the 7 o'clock regular meeting. I'd like to call the meeting to order for the May 8th, 2018 regular meeting. Madam Clerk, roll call, please.
The record will reflect that all members of council are present.
Mr. Harp, is there a closed session report?
There is no closed session report this evening, Mayor Duffield.
Thank you. We'll now have invocation by Councilman Muldoon and Pledge of Allegiance by Councilman Herdman.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Please rise, and if you're so inclined, please bow your head with me. Heavenly Father, we come before you today grateful for your bounty, your love, and the freedom you give us here in the United States of America. As Memorial Day comes around the corner, we pray especially for troops in harm's way, the fallen, for all those who have served the United States of America, and freedom around the globe. Lord, we pray here locally that we treat each other with respect and love. We recall that we're all neighbors and everyone has their own struggle, but that we should always treat others with civility and respect. We thank you for all the things you've blessed us with at the city, state, and national level. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen.
Would you put your hand over your heart and please join me in pledging allegiance to our flag. Ready, begin. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, Madam Clerk.
The city provides a yellow sign-in card to assist in the preparation of the minutes. The completion of the card is not required in order to address the city council. If the optional sign-in card has been completed, it should be placed in the box provided at the podium. The City Council of Newport Beach welcomes and encourages community participation. Public comments are generally limited to 3 minutes per person to allow everyone to speak. Written comments are encouraged as well. The City Council has a discretion to extend or shorten the time limit on agenda or non-agenda items. As a courtesy, please turn cell phones off or set them in the silent mode.
All right, thank you. We'll now have City Council announcements. These are non-discussion items and new items council members would like to be introduced for future agendas. Councilman Avery.
I have none.
Councilman Peotter.
I have none.
Councilwoman Dixon.
Thank you, Mayor. I have a few announcements. I do want to talk about some events first. Many of us attended, most of us attended the Lido House grand opening, Lido House Hotel grand opening last Thursday. It was a lot of fun and incredible to welcome such a beautiful facility, hotel, to our community. And it's just a great place to meet friends and enjoy meals and catch up with people. It's going to be a fun asset to our community. Also, maybe the mayor's going to speak to this. I had a lovely Field of Honor celebration on Saturday honoring the 776 flags that symbolize our those who serve in our armed forces. And I'm happy to have been there to recognize in honor of my father. I had a flag for my father. My sister and I honored his flag, and then my sister honored her daughter and her son-in-law, who are both officers in the United States Marine. So it's wonderful to get close to the important people who serve in the armed forces. And some announcements. I think staff is going to pull up the trolley slide. Is that first? The trolley is coming, starting early this year, as you may remember, Memorial Day, Memorial Weekend, Saturday, May 26th. Free parking for those listening. The parking lot has changed to the Avon City Lot off Tustin Avenue. Free parking. And you can learn more about the trolley services at newportbeachca.gov/trolley. The hours are 9:30 a.m. to 9:30 p.m. Saturdays and Sundays, Memorial Day, and the 4th of July through Labor Day. So let the fun begin to get around the peninsula and serve our businesses and residents and visitors. Also, speaking of the peninsula, I just want to update some folks. We have thanks to Public Works, and it's Public Works Week, and we're always grateful for the good works of Public Works. We have been doing, or they have been installing newer, safer, better crosswalks across our community, and Brad Summers, I think, is here to talk a little bit more about that. I appreciate just an update. Residents are asking because they're in various stages of completion, and I would like the residents to know the status and what's happening and how they are all going to end up, because we all, I think, are driving more carefully as we see these new crosswalks across the peninsula, across Newport and Balboa Boulevards. Okay, Brad.
Yeah, thank you, Council Member Dixon. This has been an exciting project. It's the construction of the Balboa Crossings Improvement Project. It was derived from a transportation study that was completed a while back at the request of the community to increase awareness of the many, over 40, I should say, crossings along the Balboa Peninsula. With this project, we've added in new pavement, more visible crosswalks, or the new standard for high visibility, as well as a robust pedestrian warning signage plan. Fortunately, we're nearing completion. We should be substantially complete by the end of this week. We had about a tough week of construction a few weeks ago, but that's in the past. And then I think probably within the next few weeks, we'll have a few more catch-up items just to complete the project. With some questions I've heard both in the field as well as in my office, I've answered some phone calls from the community. We've had quite a few positive comments about it, but there also were questions related to what we did, why we did it, the location of the signage and such, even the pavement. And with that, we've created a frequently asked questions response page at that newportbeachca.gov/Balboa Crossings to help the community and answer those questions. Of course, my contact information is on that page as well to answer questions if they have more.
Well, thank you. And just since I had a neighborhood meeting the other day over on Island Avenue in the peninsula, and a number of them were asking about the crosswalk. So thank you, Brad, for doing this community-wide update. But I also, since then, that we've been receiving some letters, each one of you, with Mr. Kiff and you, Brad, and Mr. Webb, independently, have all traveled out to the peninsula to look at the crosswalk so that you could respond tonight. So I do appreciate that. That is very attentive to the needs of our residents. So thank you very much. Thanks for the update. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you. Next up, Councilman Herdman.
Yes, I have a few things to. First of all, I have a request for a future agenda item titled the Beacon Bay Ground Lease Restructure. I'd like to have that appear on an agenda. I, too, participated at the Exchange Club Field of Honor ceremony. Very moving, and it was beautiful. Our mayor did an excellent job in terms of the keynote speaker that he featured. And the keynote speaker featured another speaker who also did an excellent job. It was just a really fine morning. The flags will continue to fly until Memorial Day. It's a very moving experience to go up there and be amongst them, and certainly in terms of what they represent. I also want to thank Public Works, crosswalks, curb painting, and the islands are being prepared for the summer season, and a lot of efforts being put into that, and it's appreciated by myself and also by residents. And then Councilman Muldoon, Councilwoman Dixon, and myself continue to work with community groups on the John Wayne Airport issues. We have included as part of our work plan now an every other week conference call meeting with all the stakeholders involved, and this also includes 2 representatives from each of the community groups. We had our first meeting last week, last Thursday, I believe it was, the phone call. And they're very productive. Decisions are made, work plans are discussed. So I just want everyone to know that we continue to work aggressively on this issue. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilman Muldoon, please.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. This is the first year I missed the event we have annually for veterans, but I'll tell you, it's a very moving event. If you have an opportunity, please do walk around the park. Castaways, you'll walk through the 1,776 flags. You'll see photos associated with those flags. I recall Diane Dixon, I believe, had a parent or a grandparent's photo offered. I just want to share my personal appreciation to the community members that are veterans that served our military, active or retired. Those of you who know me know I'm obsessed with Ancestry. I'm always on Ancestry.com, and I have a couple of ancestors who fought in the Revolution. And the most shocking thing I found is how often these young men, I imagine, get off a boat and pick up a musket. It's unbelievable. And we have the same phenomenon still going on today. We have people who are immediately arrived or fairly recently arrived to the United States of America, and they sacrifice more than I have. And I just want to express my gratitude to them and to those who came before them, all the ladies and men who served the United States of America. Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem O'Neill.
Sure. So a few things. So one of them, this past week I was able to attend the Newport Coast Elementary School PTA Honorary Service Awards and provide awards on behalf of the city. I got to tell you, the folks that serve on PTA boards and do the service that justify honorary service awards are truly phenomenal folks. We had the Books and Bunnies put on by the Library Foundation. There were a lot of kids there, and if you remember, a couple weeks, Saturdays ago, there's concern about rain. Didn't deter anyone. It was great. Last week I attended the Newport Mesa Pro Literacy event over at the Pacific Club. And that's one of those other things I would really encourage anyone listening at home or here in the audience to check out Newport Mesa Pro Literacy. It's run out of our public library. It teaches adults how to read. We have well over 100 volunteers teaching people, sometimes first-generation adults, first-generation into the country adults who are learning how to read English and becoming truly productive members of society. And there are volunteers in our community up and down the coast, in fact, who come to Newport Beach to help people out, and it's inspiring. This coming Friday, we have the Newport Harbor High School Memorial Day ceremony. Next week, on Wednesday, the 30th, we have the Chamber Athletic Awards. On the 2nd, we have the Corona Del Mar 5K, and then on the 3rd, we'll go over on the island for the Balboa Island Parade, which is going to be a heck of a lot of fun. And then just one plug, please vote, 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 vote. The election is on, I believe, the 5th. So if you have an absentee ballot, vote. If you are going to the ballots, vote. Very important all around. Thank you.
All right, thank you. So I have a few comments. I spoke at the Corona Del Mar Residents Association. I hadn't been there before, and I wanted to express that Joy Brenner does a great job running that group, and they're very focused on their local issues, and that was good. So the next thing, I went to the Citizens Police Academy graduation, and if you ever wanted to challenge yourself, it's free, by the way. You could sign up for that, and it takes, I think it's 3 months and 12 weeks, and once a week. And these folks were just giddy about what they learned and what they did, and so they become great ambassadors. Once they graduate, they get out there and tell us things that you don't really know what the police do. I think you graduated from that.
I did.
Yes, good for you.
Honored to have graduated.
Yes. So then I went to Balboa Club opening day, which for me, that's cheating. Boats are all what I'm about, so that was fun, obviously. Last Sunday, Balboa Island Art Walk. I hadn't done that before. I'd seen it from the water. I'd seen all the action, but I had to give out the Mayor's Choice Award. Well, I am not very artistically minded, if you will, so I told my wife this is going to be very easy. Whichever artist draws a Duffy wins. And she was so happy, and she was great, so she won. Leadership tomorrow, that was a little bit of a shock. I was up with a panel of mayors here locally at our community room, and Barbara Venezia was the moderator, which put up some tough questions for me, but I got through it. And a very unbelievably gripping event was the Field of Honor, which has been spoke about earlier this evening, but I would like to just comment that you really should walk up there. 1,776 flags. If for nothing else, just that is a sight. And, you know, we had a local hero. He called me and asked me if I would introduce him. He's a friend of mine, a very close friend of mine. And R.B. Alexander was awesome, and I told our Mayor Pro Tem that to be ready, this is going to be something, and he was, well, spectacular, I think. It's something he doesn't read anything, it just comes out of his mouth, and it just puts you right there and appreciation for what our armed forces do was very apparent. So having this RB there explaining it like he did was very special. So that ends my report on activities, and we will now.
Mr. Mayor, I have one more announcement I missed.
Sure.
I had the privilege of traveling up to Santa Rosa to the last Coastal Commission meeting after our last council meeting, and made a presentation to the Coastal Commission regarding our stance of backing off on our port plan legislation, and it was well received. Got a lot of positive support at the Coastal Commission. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, now we're going to have matters which council members have asked to be placed on a future agenda. And these matters are not up for discussion. This is merely to see if three council members would like to bring back the matters in the future date. So we have one that we'll start with is consideration of placing a charter amendment on the November ballot that would provide for voter approval of certain debt, such as certificates of participation, done by Councilman Peotter. Sure.
Everyone but Councilmember Herdman. Thank you.
All right. Next up is consideration for reorganizing the Finance Committee to be a 7-member all-citizens committee versus one with 3 council members and 4 citizens starting July 1st, 2019.
Before you vote, I made an error on that. I'll confess to that. It should be July 1, 2018.
2018. So do we have any takers for that?
Councilmember Peotter, Mayor Pro Tem O'Neill, and Mayor Dixon. So that fails.
No.
Oh, I'm sorry. There was 3. Sorry. I'm in vote mode. Sorry.
And the last one, we have consideration of sending a letter in support of H.R. 5724 relating to recovery facilities, the Affordable Care Act, and more. Councilman Peotter. Takers on that?
Councilmember Dixon, Councilmember Peotter. The only 2. Oh,
okay.
and Mayor Duffield. That's 3.
All right. Madam Clerk.
This is the time in which council members may pull items from the consent calendar. Those are items 1 through 18. Public comments are also invited on consent calendar items. Speakers must limit comments to 3 minutes. Before speaking, please state your name for the record. If any item is removed from the consent calendar by a council member, members of the public are invited to speak on each item for up to 3 minutes per item. All members listed under consent calendar are considered to be routine and will all be enacted by one motion in the form listed below. Council members have received detailed staff reports on each of the items recommending an action. There will be no separate discussion of these items prior to the time the City Council votes on the motion unless members of the City Council request specific items to be discussed and are removed from the consent calendar for separate action.
Thank you. All right, council members, are any items to be pulled from the consent calendar? Councilman Avery?
Item 5.
Thank you. Councilman Peotter? Councilwoman Dixon?
None.
Thank you. Councilman Herdman?
None.
Councilman Muldoon?
I'll lodge a recusal on item 8. I believe that's related to the overlap slightly with any wireless issues. And then I think I'm going to pull item 15. I know I'm going to pull item 15.
All right.
And that's it. Thank you.
Thank you. Mayor Pro Tem O'Neill.
Mr. Herdman, did you have something?
Yeah, I forgot something. I'm sorry. I do have to recuse myself from item number 10, Babel Island Water Main Replacement Project Phase 1. Notice of completion because of personal real property interests.
Thank you. Mayor Pro Tem O'Neill.
I'll pull 6 and 7.
All right. And myself, I have to recuse on item 3 and items 5 for policy for the harbor and and item 6. And I have a business on that location.
All right, let's see if I can do this one. So I move approval of the balance of the consent calendar with the mayor recusing himself on item number 3, number 5 being pulled by Mr. Avery, number 6 and number 7 being pulled by Mayor Pro Tem O'Neill, number 8 lodging a recusal from Mr. Muldoon, number 10 lodging a recusal from Mr. Herdman, and number 15 being pulled by Mr. Muldoon.
Very good. All right, public comments on consent calendar. Are there any?
Mayor Duffield and members of the council, my name is Jim Mosier. Of the items that have not been pulled from the consent calendar, there's still quite a few. I see that the clerk will be reading the titles of some ordinances that have to do with the reorganization of the Public Works Department and its merger with the Municipal Operations Department, which this would be the introduction of the ordinance, and if it's passed 2 weeks from now at its second reading and went into effect, would change the organization of our city starting in July, I think. I just wanted to point out that if you look carefully at items 12 and 13, which are for the purchase of maintenance vehicles that have to do with municipal operations departments, you will see that those are coming already from the Director of the Public Works. So some people might naively think that the reorganization has already happened. Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any other speakers on this item? All right, we'll now talk about item number 5, Mr. Avery.
We need to vote
sorry.
on consent calendar.
Please vote.
Prior to voting, I need to read the titles for items 3 and 4. Ordinance number 2018-5, an ordinance of the City Council of the City of Newport Beach, amending Newport Beach Municipal Code, Chapter 17.35, relating to the prohibition of piers and floats in certain areas of Newport Harbor. Item 4, 2018-6, an ordinance of the City Council of the City of Newport Beach, abolishing the Municipal Operations Department, adding the former General Services Division to the Public Works Department as Municipal Operations Division, and creating the Utilities Department. Council members Herdman and Muldoon, if you can please vote. The motion carries unanimously, 7-0.
All right. Item number 5, I'm going to have to leave. Mr. Councilman Avery.
And just for the record, that's based on Mayor Duffield's business interest. That's why he's recusing himself.
Mr. Avery, would you like a staff report, or would you like to? I'll ask. Maybe I should just ask. Would anyone like a staff report? No, Mr. Avery, you pulled. What would you like to do?
I would like to continue this item to the next meeting. There's just been I've had some discussions and correspondence, and I think it needs just further review.
Okay. Do you need is that a motion?
We should probably wait until we go out to public comment, and then we can make a motion afterward. Any further discussion? Mr. Peotter.
Can we get some staff feedback as far as what that will do if we delay it for 2 weeks?
We could certainly, Mr. Peotter, Mr. Avery, bring this back. Another council member had mentioned this to me as well. I could arguably have set up a study session and then with an action that night, and we're still in compliance with our budget requirements. We could also have an evening discussion about it, kind of depending on what you'd like, Mr. Avery, is making the motion.
All right, thanks.
Well, you don't have to make the motion right now, but would you like to discuss a little bit more about what you'd like to see happen with the city manager, or would you like to go to public comment?
Public comment.
Okay, let's go out to public comment on this item. Seeing none, we'll bring it back to the dais. Mr. Avery, would you like to make a motion?
Make a motion to bring this back the next meeting with a study session would be great.
I'll second that.
May I ask clarification, study session item, and then also an item an action item that night?
Yes,
Okay.
definitely.
And Mr. Herdman, you seconded? Ms. Dixon, would you like to? Oh, okay. Ms. Dixon second. We'll have arm wrestling afterward. All right. I'll recognize Ms. Dixon as the second. So, Ms. Dixon, would you like to speak?
Just make a brief comment. Thank you, Mr. Mayor Pro Tem. I'm delighted to see this move to the next meeting. So if we have further discussion and public engagement on this, because it has come rather fast, conceptually, I'm completely supportive. I just think we all need to go into this, and the community needs to engage. This is really significant action to create a new functioning operating department for our important harbor, and I just want to make sure we do it right. So I appreciate Mr. Avery and moving this forward so we can have full discussion and interaction with the community. So thank you.
Mr. Herdman.
Just a quick comment. In this study session and staff report, I think it's extremely important that we clarify for the community and for the council what the staffing implications are within this program. Because the current staff report, Dave, as I pointed out to you, I couldn't make numbers work. Okay, thank you.
Mr. Harp.
I'm sorry to interrupt. One issue is on agenda item number 5 is the subpart D, the ordinance. It covered both both the harbor as well as the Public Works Department, Municipal Operations Department, and creation of the Utilities Department. So I'd recommend is continue all the items except make the CEQA finding under subpart A, and then under subpart D, go ahead and adopt the ordinance this evening, just eliminating all the references to the Harbor Department. And then that would come back as a separate ordinance at the next meeting. So what you'd be doing is basically approving all the other changes except for the Harbor Department, and we carve that out, and you get back at second reading the utilities portion of it for second reading, and you get back first reading the Harbor Department portion.
You're comfortable that would accomplish what you just described?
Yeah, so basically just take out all the references, all the changes that are impacting the Harbor Department from the ordinance.
Okay. Mr. Avery, you made the motion. Is that acceptable?
Yes.
Ms. Dixon, I believe you won that second.
It's a race to the finish. Yes, thank you.
Okay. All right, Mr. Muldoon.
Thank you. I tend to agree with Councilman Herdman. This is not ready for prime time. I actually think it should be continued even past next council meeting. I'm hoping that the staff has no problem with bringing Dennis Durge into the study session to answer questions and share his thoughts on it. In the meantime, I'll join in this motion. Continue. Thank you.
Okay. Seeing no further discussion, let's vote.
Prior to reading the vote, I'll read the ordinance title for ordinance number 2018-8. An ordinance of the City Council of the City of Newport Beach amending sections 2.12.010, 2.12.018, and 2.12.100, adding section 2.12.120 to chapter 2.12 of Title II of the Newport Beach Municipal Code pertaining to the Utilities Department and Public Works Department. And Councilmember Avery, you can vote. The motion carries unanimously, 6-0.
Turn it back over to the mayor. Oh.
Next item.
And you have a conflict.
Roger.
Sorry.
And just for the record, on agenda item number 6, it's Mayor Duffield's going to be recusing himself based on his business interests as well as source of income.
Yeah, apologize. So I pulled this. Let me describe why I pulled this so we can have a little bit of discussion. So when I was reading through the staff report, I was reminded that Councilwoman Dixon had brought up the idea that this is a little bit convoluted, so I apologize, but it's important. So she had brought up, was it last year? Last 2 years. There are basically 2 ways to form a business improvement district. There's an older version that requires quite a bit more staff interaction and staff time, and then there's the newer version, which does not. And we have a handful of bids inside the city, one of them being the Tourism Improvement District, which is Business Improvement District, that is under the newer version, and we've got a couple that we're discussing tonight that are under the older version. And conceptually, I will admit there is some difficulty, and I have a little bit of difficulty renewing bids this many times without at least having a little bit more input from the folks that are being required to pay for it. And I also have conceptually a difficult time with the idea that we're requiring continued staff time. And I know that there has been more administrative effort being taken by our bids to take some of the staff time away, but it still requires more staff time and more effort than I would like to see on a business improvement district. So I'd love to have a little bit of a discussion about what I just described, and then if we moved forward and required that the bids go under the new version, similar to the tourism business improvement district, what that would mean for those particular bids.
Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem. We do have a slide that, for those that aren't familiar with the 2 types of bids that are allowed in the state of California, the type that we're talking about tonight with our restaurant business improvement district in Corona Del Mar are 1989 bid, or under the 1989 bid law. The other type of bid, is the Mayor Pro Tem said, is the 1994 bid law, and that's what our Newport Beach Tourism Business Improvement District falls under. Briefly summarizing differences, the older kind of bid, you can assess the business, or actually it's just the business can be assessed. The city council can initiate the formation. So the council can decide to form a bid in a certain neighborhood. Only a majority protest of those that would be assessed can stop that formation. And the assessment is levied on the business. They are renewed every year. That's why we come to you every spring. And there is indeed a higher level of day-to-day oversight for these bids. Essentially, they're committees of the city. The other type of bid, they're more autonomous. And this is the type of bid you can assess the property owner or the business. The stakeholders, however, must come to us and ask for a bid to be formed. And then this one, it's an opt-in. They must get at least 51% of those that will be assessed, the entire assessment, to want to be a part of that bid. So that's the key difference here. And the assessment can be levied on the real estate itself or on the business, and these actually have a term of up to 10 years. And like I said before, they're a little bit more independent than our 1989 Act bids. We have talked to our restaurant bid and our Corona Del Mar bid a number of times about changing the format of their bid. The major concern is, as with many volunteer-type organizations, only about 10% are really involved and connected, and they are concerned about that, getting a majority of those to be assessed to opt into a reform bid. They're afraid that those that aren't as connected, aren't in the know of what they're doing, won't come forward and vote for the bid. So they, in order to keep their good work moving forward, they've asked a number of times to remain under the 1989 law. And that's why we've allowed it to continue. And Mary can also speak a bit. Since 2013, the bids have stepped up in a number of ways to kind of help us out and alleviate the burden on our staff. And Mary can give you a quick overview of that.
Good evening. So when we first started working with the bids, and in 2013 is when we disbanded the 2 other bids and just continued with the 2 bids that we currently have, the Restaurant Association and Corona Del Mar. The city offered to contribute the $40,000 annually. Before that, we were doing a matching fund of, it was about $38,000 to those 2 bids. So the money that we've been supporting over time has been about the same. The bids have since 2013, they've taken over the bookkeeping services, the administration, the agenda preparation and minutes. So our time has really been reduced to just posting the agenda, working through the contracts because they're required to comply with the city contracting procedures, and then just providing some guidance and oversight for the projects and issues that they want to work on.
I would note, Mr. Mayor Pro Tem and council members, as you consider this, if you do consider passing it, I would recommend a change to item D on each of them. The staff report suggests a commitment of city funding support for 5 years, and I just am not comfortable with pledging that. We don't have an agreement attached to it. I certainly can note that we have proposed $40,000 apiece in the proposed budget, but beyond this year's budget, I'm not comfortable recommending that you make that pledge.
That's fair. Ms. Dixon.
Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem. Well, just following up on your point, Dave, is it 3 years or 5 years that we're proposing? 3.
Fiscal years? Yeah. 18, 19, 19, 20, 2021. Correct. Sorry.
So, but your point's still valid. I was actually going to suggest maybe because the bid representatives have not had a chance to think about, I mean, they may have thought about it, but just to maybe respond to, I would suggest that we approve a 1 year with the commitment that at this time next year we'll have a real solid plan going forward. So that's point number one. Point number two, we have talked about this in the past, and I certainly sympathize and understand where the representatives, how they feel about getting having the opt-in under the newer law. It's now 24 years old. I really believe that is the incentive that they would operate under the new law that would create value for their business members. And that's what this is all about, creating value to help improve and add to the service levels of the community that actually relieves the city from street sweeping and extra security perhaps and marketing for the businesses. It's a really powerful tool to give designated business areas who come together to say we want to support working together and funding the improvement of our business community. I have personal experience with the new law, the 94 law in Pasadena. I witnessed and experienced the creation of 4 successive business improvement districts in different parts of Pasadena: Old Town, Lake Street, the Playhouse District, and another district I can't remember anymore. But they were so successful that businesses wanted to opt in because they saw the advantage of having the sidewalks swept and new street signs made and enhanced security, enhanced trash pickup perhaps. There was a very powerful value. I would recommend that we encourage our restaurant and CDM bid representatives to become familiar with what other communities are doing, because it is a tremendous source of revenue for no additional cost, really, for what it's a conversion of what businesses currently would be paying, that the formula coincides on that property tax assessment or a fee that gets assessed with the property taxes. And the advantage is that there's no bill collection. The fee is issued with the property tax bill annually. And so there's a 100% fee collection. We have had a problem. I don't know what the current situation is with fee, because that does fall to the city to collect the unpaid amounts. Isn't that true?
The bids have now taken that over. They have contracted through the city with bookkeeping services that handle the collection of assessments.
Do we know what the percentage of uncollected?
It has gone up. Well, sorry, the collection for assessment has gone up. I only have the numbers for Restaurant Association. I didn't have time to get them for Corona Del Mar. But because the city used to do the bookkeeping, when we handed over, we were at about a 71% rate of assessment collection. The last 2 years, they've been at 89%, and this year it looks like they're at about 91%.
And that's fantastic.
Collection.
So that is an indicator that these businesses see value, and that just gets transferred over to the different legal structures. So I'm willing to, I think willing to go with the 3 years, but I think let's set a deadline to look at the 94 law. That would be my motion, I guess. I make a motion to extend this renewal for 1 year, and then let's spend the next year or less to figuring out a better solution and talking to the existing models of operation to see the lessons learned.
I'll second that motion.
Okay. So here's my general thought on that, because it's not about it. I think you're on the right track in the motion. I would put a little more teeth into the motion, and my suggestion would simply be that I think that given what we know about, given everything you just said, which I agree with, we need to transition to that new model. And so what I would maybe suggest is slightly different. So I would suggest that we instead propose a 1-year reauthorization with the understanding that during this year there's got to be the wheels need to be in motion to transition over to the newer model next year. There's one more thing. You might not, so let me just see what I can do. So if we authorize with that understanding, I think the only way to really build some teeth into this would be to offer the $40,000 this year with the caveat that if they do not move to that next model, that $40,000 be repaid and no further monies be provided. Now, I will say that is not what I'm sure Bernie came to this meeting expecting me to say. So with that understanding, I'd actually suggest that we continue the item to the next meeting so that we can have a little bit more discussion on this, and the bid can either make a counter proposal that we can make that work with the city, or at least find some avenue that makes sense here. I just don't, I think we've got to modernize this and bring it back up to what people expect, and then especially given that I think you're right, we've got to figure out whether the majority of the businesses want this. So right now we're only on the item of the restaurant bids. So I would focus my discussion only on the restaurant bid, but I suppose my motion ultimately would be to continue to the next meeting based on what I just described, and hopefully at the next meeting we make a similar motion to what I just described.
All right, suggestion.
Okay, I'll make that motion when we come back from public comment then. So, Mr. Herdman, did you have something?
That's fine.
Okay, so any other comments? Staff, does anything I just say give you heartburn? Okay. So remembering that we're only on the restaurant bid item at the moment, is there any public comment?
Good.
Mayor Pro Tem O'Neill, members of the City Council, I'm Gary Sherwin. I'm the president of Newport Beach and Company, and we do the contract marketing work for the Restaurant Association. And as Tara Finnegan was mentioning, I think there has always been an interest with the Restaurant Association to move to the 94 law. But up until fairly recently, and I would say within the last 3 to 4 years, there's been a concern about the level of engagement with our restaurant partners and whether or not, in fact, they would renew that bid. I think the fact that we're over 90% now on the collection of our assessments is indication that they are now seeing real value from this. And I think you've hopefully seen what we've been trying to do with Restaurant Week and ongoing restaurant promotions, the Dine Newport Beach promotions. So I think there is value, and there has been informal discussion about moving to that new law. The Restaurant Association, and we have some members of the board here with us tonight, if you have any questions for them specifically, I think they would be open to taking a look at this. There is another factor, though, that is kind of pushing this issue to the forefront, and that is, and I mentioned it to Councilperson Dixon, and I've also given the information to the City Attorney's Office about a ballot proposition that is coming up in November called the Tax Fairness, Transparency, and Accountability Act of 2018. We believe it will qualify for the November ballot. It is going to basically drastically limit local revenue authority, and as part of that ballot proposition, it will essentially put business improvement districts, with the exception, strangely enough, of tourism business improvement district, but other business improvement districts would essentially be put out of business if this proposition passes. So we've had some informal discussions in our office about moving before November, because our legal counsel has said that if we can move the Restaurant Association before November into the 94 law, we can avoid the problems in case this ballot proposition does get passed. And that would be my recommendation to the Restaurant Association Board, which has not acted on this yet. And we are going to ask them to move. But we're going to have to move very quickly if they decide to do that so we can get this completed by November. I can't speak for the other bids on this, only the Restaurant Association. But again, we're more than willing to try to explore that because I do believe there is significant support for the Restaurant Association bid. It does need to be reconfigured. If you look at the assessed businesses, there are some interesting businesses that probably shouldn't be a part of this assessment anyway, which include quickie marts and grocery store dining and all of that really shouldn't be a part of this. So we're certainly open to taking a look at that. But I would politely suggest that if we can get a one-year extension on this, we will work to try to get this converted to the 94 law because of what I just explained to you. I think that is something that the board wants to do, but we need to stay in business for at least one more year to get it moved over.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any other speakers on this item?
Mayor Pro Tem O'Neill and members of the council, my name is Jim Mosier. I think it's fair to say I've probably been to more bid meetings than anybody who is not connected with a bid. And I want to start by saying I have considerable respect from going to those meetings to the volunteers who participate on the boards of them. However, as we've heard, they have resisted the idea of asking if their members would actually voluntarily want to be members of the bid, because some of them are not very actively involved, some of them do not feel well connected with them, and those people might not voluntarily be wanting to pay the assessment fee, which would be necessary to form this other kind of bid. What I wanted to point out, which should I think be obvious to you, that there are a lot of other people who have no connection at all to the bid, probably not a whole lot of interest in what the bid is doing, who are also being asked to contribute to it, namely with this $40,000. I made a written comment, which I have to say now, I went back and looked from 2013 what happened. My comment is not historically accurate about where the $40,000 came from, but I do want to put the $40,000 in perspective. We have about 80,000 people in this city, and when you want to collect $40,000, that's 50 cents from each person. It may not seem like a whole lot. On the street where I live, we have several young families who are the prototypical American family with 2 parents, 2 children. Each of those, this is like knocking on their door and saying each year we want, we're collecting for the city, we want to collect $2 from that family for the restaurant owners. And they ask, why are you collecting $2 for the restaurant owners? I don't know what the answer is. And they say, oh, by the way, we also want to collect $2 for the business owners who happen to own a business along PCH and Corona Del Mar. Why are you collecting $2 for them? And then what is not on your agenda tonight, apparently we're asking, another $2 for the people who are on Marine Avenue. Why? I don't know quite why, but we're collecting for them. Another $2 for the business owners in Balboa Village. It starts to add up, and you might ask, why are we not collecting $2 for the business owners who work in McFadden Square or Lido Village or any other part of the city? Why are we not collecting $2 for the auto dealers? The whole thing is a little bit peculiar when you look at it from that point of view. And those uninvolved people are being asked to participate in this. I think the idea of both the 1989 and the 1994 bids was they were supposed to be totally self-supporting. So if they needed city support, that should have been paid for out of the assessments from the district. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other speakers, please?
City Council members, my name is Jordan Otterbein, and I'm the president of the Newport Beach Restaurant Association. I've had the pleasure of serving this last fiscal year, along with 10 other colleagues on the board. I've had the great pleasure of working with all of them, everyone connected to the Restaurant Association, including the great staff at Newport Beach and Company. We're here for a couple of reasons tonight. I'll try to be quick. But first, to point out a few of the initiatives we've undertaken over the last 5 years to improve the benefit to the stakeholders of the association. We've developed a 3-year strategic business plan and completed the identified goals. We have developed an updated strategic business plan which will carry the bid through fiscal year 2020. We've partnered with Newport Beach and Company, which has become an extremely beneficial endeavor for the bid. We've restructured our stakeholder assessments to align with the benefit received by the bid, and we've increased the collection of delinquent assessments, which I'm probably most proud of, as has been mentioned by several people, 91% collected versus just 2 short years ago, 29% were delinquent. So also, Newport Beach and Company has become the backbone of the bid by providing administration, bookkeeping, and marketing services to achieve our goals and have significantly raised the bar. Restaurant Week this past January saw a 38% increase in advertising impressions and more than 11 million public relations and media impressions compared to the prior year. Restaurant Week generated an estimated $2.9 million in consumer spending in Newport Beach, which was an increase of 18% over the prior year. The bid and Newport Beach and Company will continue to deploy integrated marketing campaigns throughout the year and during restaurant need periods, during holidays, and local culinary events. The Dine NB website will continue providing dining guides, improved imagery, friendly navigation, and will continue to post content from food and lifestyle bloggers and influencers. We have a city-formed entity that is working. It is working as is under its current structure and operations. We have made great progress in the last 5 years, and we have board members who are engaged and eager to serve. In fact, tomorrow morning we have a record 13 applicants to select from for appointment for next fiscal year's term. So on behalf of the Advisory Board of Directors, I want to thank you so much for your time. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Any other speakers? Seeing none, let's bring it back. So I'll make a motion that we continue this item to the next meeting and provide the opportunity for the restaurant board, the bid board, to at least discuss the we've discussed up here. Sorry, I know. Sorry, I apologize.
No, I'm bracing Diane for a second.
Double second.
All right, I move to continue this item to the next meeting.
And I'll second it.
Okay. And just for purpose of discussion, I would strongly encourage the restaurant board bid board to discuss this because to the point that Mr. Sherwin made, which is that if there's something pressing that needs to be done quickly, perhaps this is the impetus to get that done quickly. Any other discussion up here? Ms. Dixon.
Maybe just one quick question or comment, and thank you, Mayor Pro Tem. I fully support this direction. The gentleman, Mr. Otterbein, who just spoke, I think did indeed answer the question of the return of investment that the city gets for its $40,000 in the enhanced sales tax and business activity that comes through just Restaurant Week alone, let alone the rest of the year and the excellent marketing and promotion activities that you do. So I think it's a very, very modest price to pay for the excellent sales tax revenue that comes back to the city. So thank you, restaurant owners and restaurant bid, and look forward to another successful year and some change. So thank you.
Mr. Herdman.
I just need some clarification, Gary. You mentioned that if the bids make the conversion or the switch from the previous to the 1994, I believe you said it is. I can't remember up here on the chart. Okay. Are they grandfathered in or something? I don't quite understand the urgency. Other than the legislation, right, or the initiative.
Well, according to our legal counsel, when we were asking about what our options are, if this ballot proposition does get qualified, and we do believe it will be, and it'll be on the November ballot, and we also assume that because of the significant resources behind it, it has a very high likelihood of passing. What could we do? His recommendation is to move to the 94 law, give the restaurant bid a 5-year life extension, and that way we would be able to kind of get beyond the mandates of this, what this ballot proposition would be doing. He said, think that is frankly the only way out.
Because a ballot proposition does not affect bids under the 1994?
Apparently not.
Okay, all right, now I understand. All right.
Okay. Any other discussion up here? Nope. All right, let's vote.
The motion carries unanimously, 6-0.
All right, looks like next up is Councilman Muldoon, item number 15.
So, Mr. Mayor.
Item 7, Mayor.
Yep. Mr. 7, number 7. I had pulled item 7 as well.
Okay. So item 7.
Mr. Mayor, if you wouldn't mind, I could just comment briefly.
Yes, please.
I have the exact same comments on item 7 as I had on item 6, and so perhaps, unless there's further discussion up here, we could kick it out to public comment.
Please come up.
Bernie Spalstad, Chairman of Business Improvement District, Chronomar, Mayor and Councilman O'Neill, and council persons. We have a different situation, Chronomar. We went through this 4 years ago and got into very deeply. Councilman Dixon, one thing that you have to remember is that the point you made about taxes, that has to do with property owners. There's 2 ways to go, property owners or businesses. So that's something that would have to be figured out. Chronomar, if you've been through there lately, they have quite a few vacancies, more than I've seen in a considerable amount of time. If you follow through with this, there won't be a bid in Chronomar, because 1994 is not going to pass. And I don't know who's going to work on it to try to make it pass, because it just it isn't worthwhile. And you want to talk about saving money, it's going to cost you more to try to get that bid approved than it would be giving us $20,000 for administration and $20,000 for the bid. We bring in over $100,000 a year every year. So I can't conceive. The main thing you'd be doing is giving, which I think the staff would like to have, maybe you do too, getting rid of the Chronomar bid. So it's up to you on how you'd want to do that. We can get into it again, but the businesses, you're not going to get 51% of the businesses, or you're not going to get 51% of the owners. What's the incentive for a property owner in Chronomar to vote to be penalized, which they're not penalized right now? So if you don't go property owners, then you're going to go through the businesses. The businesses, we have enough time collecting, because a lot of them aren't doing that well. And they're not going to vote a new tax or new fee on their businesses. Right now, they're happy. We work very well with Chronomar Residents Association, Chamber of Commerce, and the bid. We've been going fabulous for the last years. And so what you basically want to do, if you want to get rid of the bid, then you're going to still have a lot of costs in Chronomar to try to do and take care of all the things that we take care of. So basically, you're not going to achieve anything but a problem. Thanks.
Thank you. Are there any other speakers on this item? Seeing none, I'll bring it back to Dias. Councilwoman Dixon.
Thank you, Mayor. What is the collection percentage of uncollected payments?
I didn't get exact numbers, but I think it's about on par. They are collecting what they have over time, not anything more or less.
Which is about what percent of the business?
I think they were about 30% not collected. uncollected.
Okay. All right. Bernie, would you mind come up so I can ask you a couple of questions, please? So by your own explanation just now, you've indicated that you do provide value to the businesses that are members, and they pay a membership to you, and some pay and some don't. 70% approximately pay. So that's a good number that represents the support for what you're doing. So it's just simply whether it's the business or the property owner, and I agree with you, I think it should be the business, but they're already supporting. It would be the equivalent, same amount of money. The fee is equivalent and some formula that would be equivalent. And then you have more independence. You don't have to come back here every year. And you continue to do the good work that the community members see value in.
We've cut our cost, Councilman Dixon. We used to get, when I got involved over 10 years ago, we used to get matching funds around 80,000 or so. It's gone down. And it was 50,000 once with one of the outlying accounting firms, 50,000 to do the accounting. This has all been brought down to 20,000. We have bringing in 100,000. We net the city about, depends on how you figure it, at least the net 40,000 a year plus all 9 people working to do good in Corona Mar. Has to do with trash cans, has to do with the benches, has to do with the tree wells, it has to do with a lot of marketing for Corona Mar, and it's all in your backup, so I won't go through all that. But these businesses, I personally call people to collect, personally, and I've gone through this with 10 or 15 different businesses over different years, and I'm guaranteeing you that if they have a choice not to get a fee, that they won't get a fee.
How many businesses are actually paying to be members of the bid?
I don't know the exact figure. I have to ask counting.
Know, Mary?
We have 460, people in Corona Mar businesses, and I don't know what the percentage of the actual payment is, but
Yeah, I think the membership number is closer to like 380. So,
and these are 380 businesses in Corona del Mar that are supporting the Business Improvement District as it's
paying
currently.
Because they get a bill.
Well, all right. Well, anyway, I think I'm supporting the success of your bid by saying let's create an easier system to manage. Let's find a way we could even have more consistent revenues. You don't have to beat people up to go collect it. And business would remain the same. You could still continue to do the same progress. But anyway, we don't have to debate that now. But I just wanted to get some level set on the facts. I guess I would entertain a similar motion as to what Mayor Pro Tem had proposed in the last item.
Can I ask a quick question?
Mayor Pro Tem, yes.
Yep, thanks. Let's say you're a business, you don't pay. What happens? So does it get put on a? Do we file a lien?
Do you want to remind? We did a couple of forgiveness episodes, right?
right, yeah, with the Corona del Mar bid, I want to say maybe it was 3 or 4 years ago, we did an amnesty program that we allowed the businesses that were delinquent to pay just their assessment and waive all the penalties. And we collected from maybe about 30% of the people that were outstanding. So a few paid, but not everybody took advantage of that. And like I said earlier, it's kind of holding steady at that 30% that continues to not pay.
What happens
ultimately? We could take them to collections. We haven't gone that route. No, we haven't.
Okay, so it's not like it gets put on a property tax lien bill or, okay.
What the rest? Sorry.
So it goes on their business license bill? Is that right?
No. No, it's a separate invoice that's sent directly from the bookkeeper for the bid, for the assessment.
Mr. Kiff, were you? Oh, okay. All right. Well, I moved to continue this item and for 2 weeks to make a determination of whether to provide the CDM bid the opportunity to review internally what the discussion we have just had.
Go ahead.
You want to add to it?
Well, I was going to say I support that, but I wanted to just remind Bernie that what Gary Sherwin motioned, that if this ballot measure passes in November 2018, you may not have a bid under the current structure. Just be mindful of that. Okay.
So I'll second the motion.
Okay.
All right, we have a motion and a second. Let's vote.
With Councilmember Peotter voting no, the motion carries 6-1.
All right, next up, Councilman Muldoon, item 15.
Thank you. I don't need a staff report from this. I just wanted to express my gratitude for Tom Edwards for the great job he's done thus far. However, I could see potentially someone needing to step in on a temporary basis to replace his role to get to the finish line, or to essentially be a closer, if you will, to make the best our goals achievable, and then bring Tom back on. And I wanted to get that out there so that staff was aware that that's where I like to potentially see this go, because there's been discussion about bringing on someone else or keeping someone longer, Mr. Kiff. And if we're to do that, I would be of the thought that we would suspend Mr. Edwards' contract during that duration, and then could return back when he goes more to the monitoring specialty that he tends to have the great experience with. So with that, I'll move the staff item.
Second.
All right, can we get some public comment? Anyone like to speak on this item? Seeing none, I'll bring it back. What? Oh, sorry.
Mayor Duffield, members of the council, my name is Jim Mosier. The item is airport consulting contract, which the city has had for a number of years. I just wanted to point out, since we are in the budget mode, that this involves a certain expenditure of money. There are other, as Councilman Muldoon alluded to, other consulting contracts the city is involved in with the airport. And I would just ask the council, when they are considering the budget approval, which is coming up, whether there is any clear budget anywhere overall for our airport effort. I have not actually seen that, or what the commitment is, where the money is, and how the public can identify, or the council identify, where it is in the budget. And this is coming out of, again, one of those kind of amorphous accounts that it's not obvious what the budget is being budgeted for. Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr.
Any other
Mayor,
speak?
Sorry, I would be pleased to call that out next time when I present the budget, because it's clear to me, but I understand how it's not clear to others.
All right, thank you. Any other speakers? Seeing none, we'll bring it back. We have a motion and a second. Let's vote.
Motion carries unanimously, 7-0.
All right, I think that takes care of the consent calendar. Right? I hope so. Okay. Madam Clerk.
Public comments are invited on non-agenda items generally considered to be within the subject matter jurisdiction of the City Council. Speakers must limit comments to 3 minutes. Before speaking, please state your name for the record.
All right, are there any public comments on non-agenda items?
Mayor Duffield and members of the council, my name is Jim Mosier. I did want to speak briefly about the city manager recruitment process, which to my surprise is not anywhere on the agenda tonight. At your meeting a month ago, April 24th, you directed the city clerk to contract with a firm called Roberts Consulting to search for a city manager for us. I asked to see the contract. Actually, I have not seen the contract, but the clerk assures me that there is one. So the Roberts Consulting Company is presumably working on the city manager recruitment. There was, as you probably know, a survey asking for public input on the qualities we would like to see in a city manager. That was on the city website. It ended on Friday. All reference to the fact that the city of Newport Beach is looking for a city manager has disappeared from the city website, so it's gone dark on that matter. There is no web page devoted to it. There's a contract somewhere, but the public hasn't seen the contract yet exactly. I did see the prospectus from the Roberts Company a month ago, and that prospectus, the company that you hired, says that in the first 4 weeks, it is typical for them to prepare a brochure about what the public is looking for and what the council is looking for in a new city manager and to post the entry. That was April 24th. This is the 4th week. And so I don't know if the job is going to be posted soon. I don't know what's happening to the survey results. And I am wondering if you, as a council, are ever going to publicly discuss what we're looking for in a city manager so that the public can weigh in and provide their input to you on that. I don't know how the consultant is going to know what you want in a city manager unless you instruct them, and I don't know how you can instruct them unless you do it at a public meeting. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other speakers? Please come up.
Okay, so Friday is National Poppy Day, and I'm sure you all know what that's about. It's World War I, and it's from the poem "In Flanders Fields Where Poppies Blow Between the Crosses Row and Row." I'm sure you know the poem. And then at the end it says, if you don't uphold the reason the people are lying in the fields over there in Flanders Fields, they will not sleep. They will not sleep in peace, though the poppies grow in Flanders Fields. And I guess I'm here tonight because I feel like a lot of people don't even bother to vote. And all these people, all these wars, you know, revolution, Civil War, World War I, World War II, everything else that's been going on. And a lot of citizens around here don't even bother to register to vote and vote. So please, there's a primary coming up, and I think it's really, really important. I think there's huge issues here, and I hope that people will not blindly check a Republican box or a Democratic box, because that's what they always do. I hope they do. Couldn't they please just read about the candidates, look into their backgrounds, and of course I'm always on the sober living thing, and former Councilwoman Wendy Lease from Costa Mesa wrote an excellent commentary in the Sunday Daily Pilot about how the sober living people are bullying the residents of Costa Mesa, Newport, Huntington Beach, all over Orange County. And it just seems like the cities are just kind of letting this go on, and I don't understand this. I feel that the citizens should be more united on this issue and fight back, and I think we need the protection of the governments of the cities. And I just want to say I was at Dana Rohrabacher's press conference a couple of weeks ago about the sober living issue. And he feels now that after 10 years, well, almost 15, that I've been trying to do something about it. He feels now that this is an issue that he would like to take up. And so I said, well, where have you been all this time? And he said, well, I wasn't really aware of this till 2 years ago. And then you have his opponent, Scott Baugh, who's a lobbyist for the sober living community and all in on this. And there was a really great guy at this press conference. He is a councilman from Huntington Beach. So we got into a great conversation about all this. And he told me that at the last election, when he first ran for councilman, he was taken to a meeting, invited to a meeting with Dave Ellis, Scott Baugh, Jim Rinkheimer. Now these are total sober living, all in on it, and the head of the Orange County Builders Association. And they told him that they would give him $300,000 if he just went along with their program for what I would call overdevelopment and just let the sober living thing keep right on rocking and rolling. And he basically said, I'm not going along with this, and walked out. He raised his own money, and he's on the city council. So please think about who you're voting for.
Thank you. I agree. We should all get out and vote. Agree with that.
Mayor Duffield and City Council, my name is Luke Drew, president of the Cliff Haven homeowners association, well, community association, it's not an HOA. The story polls went up for Newport Village yesterday, and I would like to encourage each of the members of the city council to go down and take a look at those story polls before they're taken down Thursday to see the massive size of that development that's going up there. Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any other speakers? Seeing none.
Mr. Mayor, if you wouldn't mind. Mr. Kiff, would you mind just briefly explaining on that story poll that that is not associated with the city in any respect, but it might be worth for the folks in the, it might be worth for folks at home to know that.
Sure, Mr. Mayor Pro Tem. So the developer, the landowner of that property there on both sides of Coast Highway at Mariners Mile is planning a small community meeting with Newport Heights residents. And the Newport Heights residents asked that landowner if they would story poll on a temporary basis. Sorry, I'm using that as a verb. Story poll the site so that they could have a better dialogue at the Newport Heights meeting. So this is outside of any development process. We do not have a formal application in from the landowner as to a project. So in that project probably is at least 12 months from even reaching at the planning commission level. So that's why those story polls are up there. I did send out an email to everybody encouraging them to understand it as well as look at it. Thank you.
Thank you. All right. Seeing no more speakers, we'll now bring it back to the oral reports from City Council on committee activities. Mr. Avery?
I have none.
Mr. Peotter? Mrs. Dixon? Mr. Herdman?
None.
Mr. Muldoon? Mayor Pro Tem?
None.
And I have none. All right, now we'll finally move on to current business.
So, Mr. Mayor, this is just a big dollar item. We do have a staff report, if you'd like. Apparently, Mark and Brad have presented a 90-second one as well as a 5-minute one. If you don't want anyone at all, that works too.
I actually would request a 90-second one.
Okay, I'll take 5 seconds for an introduction. Mark Vukovic, the Deputy Director. Brad Summers, our Principal Engineer, will describe this contract for our traffic signal system.
Yeah, thank you, Mark. The current traffic signal maintenance and repair contract is actually up at the end of this fiscal year. And with that, the Public Works Department has moved forward with an RFP process to select a new contract maintenance company. And talking about quickly, our goals with this, of course, is safe and efficient movement of people and goods. When we look at the traffic signal system, and with regards to the maintenance and repair agreement, we're actually considering our traffic signals, about 123 of them, our enhanced pedestrian crossings, and other enhanced or electronically controlled traffic control devices. Considering traffic signal maintenance in the 90-second version, we actually have 4 components to that. The first 3, the routine maintenance, the extraordinary maintenance, emergency response within the green box, are included in this traffic signal maintenance agreement. The 4th one is not. Real quick, routine maintenance is kind of a fixed, scheduled preventative maintenance items with fees that are fixed within the scope of work. Extraordinary items are items that are somewhat standard, like replacement of green indications, but we can't schedule them because they go out randomly, so they're more as needed. With that and within the scope of work, we have fees for the labor, equipment, and materials needed to replace those. And again, we would call out the contractor when needed. Emergency response, when the traffic signal goes down, say for a power outage or if we have a collision, at that point we would call out the traffic signal maintenance company. They would assess the situation, repair it, of course, as quickly as possible to ensure we get the motoring public up and moving again. The 4th item, traffic signal replacement and major maintenance. Large scale, this generally happens through our annual traffic signal rehabilitation program, which is also a competitive design bid build type of project. Okay, thank you. Within the proposal review process, we did a traditional qualifications and cost-based review. We had a review panel that we prepared from Public Works as well as municipal operations. We also did a cost-based review based on the routine maintenance items and the extraordinary work items. In both cases, Siemens Incorporated, our current contractor, came out as the highest ranked. So in conclusion, a few seconds longer than hoped, but we request the City Council award the traffic signal maintenance and repair agreement to Siemens of Anaheim, California, based on the review of their cost proposal and qualifications. And on another note, they have performed at a high level for us in the current agreement. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, seeing no comments from up here, I'll take it out to the public. Are there any comments from the public on this item? Seeing none, I'll bring it back. And
I'll second.
all right,
Staff
we have a
recommendation.
motion and a second. Please vote.
Motion carries unanimously, 7-0.
All right, Madam Clerk.
Motion for reconsideration is a motion to reconsider the vote on any action taken by the City Council. Either this meeting or the previous meeting may be made only by one of the council members who voted with the prevailing side.
Are there any motions for reconsideration? Seeing none, we are adjourned.